We're talking about artificial general intelligence, and today we're going to kick off with notation and one specific element of notation that is really crucial to forming a framework for AGI that we hope to do in the time frame of 2024, at least to get our framework established. I'm Dr. Aliana Moran, founder and chief scientist with Themesis Incorporated. We're a boutique AI company, and we bring you both inventions that are relevant to creating AGI as well as education that will help you deepen your own knowledge and extend your abilities to create systems that you desire. The notational element that we're going to introduce today is psi, the Greek letter psi, P-S-I, and it's shaped like a pitchfork head or a trident that Neptune might hold. Now, the reason that this is so important is that we're referring back to work by Carl Friston, specifically his 2013-2015 papers, and that's one of the origination points that we're looking at for beginning AGI. And the reason that this is so important is that he wrote an equation which is a little bit different from the equations that he and colleagues are writing right now, but in this, the role of psi was paramount. Psi means, in this notation, the external world, the world in which everything lives. And the equation that he wrote said, in essence, psi, this external world, is dependent. He's using Bayesian logic, Bayesian probabilities here. So he's saying it's dependent on. I had a bit of a misspeak when I was freewheeling that explanation earlier, not surprisingly. So here we are with a slightly more focused explanation, grounded in the actual equations that Friston's used. This equation is from one of his earliest papers on the subject. It's Life as We Know It in 2013. If you take a look at the first two equations, we're seeing that upside down triangle. That's a gradient operator, and it's multiplying the free energy F. And you can safely just disregard those first two equations because they are flow equations. If you're dealing with a gradient type of situation, you need them, but most of the time, depending on the situation that you're attempting to set up and model, you don't need them. So we're going to go directly to that next equation, the one that says F of SA and lambda. We're specifically going to focus for this vid on the term Q in the left-hand side of that integration. We're just looking at that psi and the vertical bar lambda. What Friston is describing here is the conditional dependence of psi, the external states, on the internal representational states. What was probably most perplexing and confusing as I worked my way through Friston's various papers time and again was that he was referring to these external states, psi, as the hidden states. And that was just so odd. I have to confess, I had the hardest time understanding this equation. It's not the math. I mean, the math is really typically it's the least of our problems. I had a hard time getting an intuition. And during that time frame, I was correcting some work where I had made a horrific blunder. Oh my God, one of the biggest mistakes in my life. We're reserving that for a follow on YouTube. That's just like, that's just a prelude to forthcoming works, shall we say. In this particular case, I was puzzling about it. I was writing blogs that were going to lead up to the correction of my major goofus. I was trying to explain all the different steps in basically Fristonian active inference, which is the mechanism that he proposes. I couldn't get it. I felt like I was beating my head against a wall. It's not that the math was hard to follow, I just couldn't get what it really, really meant. So one evening I gave up. I watched a little Downton Abbey, and I went to bed and took a nap. And I woke up in the middle of the night, and I was pondering this whole, what is the meaning of psi kind of thing. And it came to me. And what came was a Downton Abbey analogy. So it's like this. You are one of the original builders of Downton Abbey in this little mythology that we're constructing here, okay? You are the great lord. You own these beautiful estates. They've been given to you, and you are now going to build a beautiful country home. And it's going to be large, and you're going to have servants, and you're going to have people who will work for you. And in this environment, you will have people who will bring information to you and ways that you will send actions out. So, for example, you will receive things in even. You will receive in all kinds of goods necessary to running the household. You will receive information. So there's some sections in the Downton Abbey stories where they're installing telephones, and what a odd and sort of uncomfortable thing this is. It's a new way of receiving information. In another season in that show, they're in World War I, and they allow Downton Abbey to be used as a hospital for wounded officers. So they are receiving in all sorts of strange and unusual things. Wounded people, doctors, nurses, other medical staff. And of course, they're receiving in medical supplies, and then there are people going out. So yes, this notion of bringing information in, sending information and things out, that all makes sense. But how does Psi, the external world, still depend on the Abbey? This is asking a question about this conditional dependence. And then it sort of struck me. As you build Downton Abbey, as you start building the walls around, you have to establish the mechanisms by which the information comes in and the actions go out. And at some point, it's not that the external world is dependent on the information coming in and the actions going out, but our understanding of that external world. So really, in this context, what makes sense is to say Psi is not, it is the external reality, but it is also, this is a little philosophical here, a little metaphorical, but it is our understanding of reality. Now, this is why it's so important to talk about this whole notion of Psi. Because in later works, Friston drops that. If you take a look at his more recent papers that he's written himself, papers that he's written with all sorts of different people, that Psi is not as present. There's other equations, and they give us a slightly different interpretation, and this is okay. Okay, it is all right when somebody is formulating ideas to change the notation, because the notation is like how they are constructing the problem in their mind. Have you ever heard of something called twin speak? And that's a language that identical twins might build between each other as they grow up with this very tight bond, and they're communicating with each other in a way in which they don't communicate with the rest of the world. When a person is in their own mind, they are creating an understanding of the world, and they don't even have a twin with whom to speak. They are having to construct a language. And if you look at the earliest papers that are the breakthrough papers of most of the great leading thinkers, Hinton being a great example, when you look at those first papers, you look at the language and say, that's a little weird. I'm not too sure I get that. Where's he coming from? And then we have to follow their works through several papers, through sometimes as much as a decade or more, a couple of decades, in order to understand, oh, actually, that made a whole lot of sense. So right now, in these earliest papers, 2013, 2015, Friston is formulating his notions, and key to them is how, as we construct a representation of what's around us, and then the model of the representation, and those are different things, we can get a sense of where he's coming from. Here's what's important. Here's why it's important. That notion of Psi, identifying the world around us, where we at this moment are part of the system. We are inside Downton Abbey. We are the butler, the housekeeper. We're sending out requests to have goods delivered. We're sending out requests to have information come in. The information comes in via telephone calls, via newspapers, via letters, via people visiting and giving us information. So we are directing this exchange. But there is a boundary between self, us, within the walls, and the external environment. This boundary, in this case, grew up over time. But it is the actual external walls of the Abbey, and then outside that, the Abbey grounds. So I'm going to suggest that you consider a notion advanced in a book that was written in 1969 by G. Spencer Brown. It was kind of a cult classic for quite a while, and still is, I'm sure. And Wikipedia says that it straddles the boundary between mathematics and philosophy. It's regarded as a book on epistemology. Let's add that word to our little lexicon here, because we're going to see in the papers that we'll be reading together that Friston and others like to use the phrase epistemological. Oh God, can't you just say knowledge-based? But okay, epistemological, meaning knowledge-based approach. And the first notion in the laws of form is a law that says draw a distinction. It's a line in the sand. Draw a distinction. And what we're doing here as the very, very first step in creating AGI and specifically establishing the mathematical notation that will carry us forward, because we're going to want to have real discussions and we need a framework, and that framework must be expressed in a common language. So the first step is we're going to draw a distinction. Laws of form. There is the real world around us, that's psi, and then here we are on the inside of this AGI, where we have both a representation of what's around us. That's what our senses tell us. It's some, maybe we've taken a camera image and we've cut it up into little pixels, or we're taking text that we're reading or we're hearing and parsing it into sentences and then into words, or we're accessing other forms of knowledge. We are an autonomous being inside our own space. We are accessing the knowledge. We have a representation that we are working on, and then we are creating a model of that representation. So there's these three elements. There's psi, the world around us, a barrier, between us and the world, a boundary. And then there's the representation that we access via our observational methods, and then there is a model that we create of our representation, and the representation represents reality. It's a double jump if you're playing checkers. So this is important. We need to have not just the notation, but these concepts that underlie the notation. By the way, if we ever get to a really intelligent AGI, right now we're just talking about framework, we're talking about math, physics, and some code. This is not something that's going to suddenly embody itself with consciousness. And I don't see in the very near time frame that we're going to have like slots in the code where we'll have a procedure call that says invoke consciousness here. Not realistically, not that I can see. But there will be some degree of agency within us being the AGI. And that's what we're trying to talk about. So the notion of having an external reality, and then the representation of reality, and then us creating a model of that representation of the reality is useful. And if ever we get to the point of installing Asimov's laws of robotics into a system, it's going to need that clarification. So, once again, Aliana Moren from Themesis, talking to you from the beautiful island of Kauai, where it is December. We've had a very blustery day. It's midday, and I'm wearing long sleeves and a shawl because it is a blustery day, and I'm sharing the sofa with my cat, who's trying to squeeze close and get body warmth because it is a blustery day. Thank you for joining me. Have a lovely day. Till soon. As always, the associated blog post for today's YouTube contains resources and references that will give you all the background that we've mentioned during this talk. Please check us out at Themesis.com. Please be looking for our announcements of the upcoming Themesis short course on the top 10 terms in statistical mechanics. This will help you get a start on the energy-based neural networks and variational inference and other methods in AGI. Also, to make sure that you get the most up-to-date information, blog posts, YouTubes, and special offers including courses, short courses, and code releases, please opt in with Themesis. Go to the Themesis website, www.themesis.com. Go to the About page, scroll down, find the opt-in form, and do the opt-in thing. Please be sure to move the Themesis emails to your preferred folder because we're sending out things that you will love to receive. Thank you. We so look forward to seeing you soon. Have a lovely day.